Good day everyone, we are the Group 5 and we are about to report the 20th century and the art since 1945. So before we start, I would like you to know what is 20th century. So the 20th century was one of the particular worldwide upheaval ranging from wars to economic downturns to radical political movements. So these changes were boldly reflected in the works of avant-garde artists. So what's avant-garde artist? Avant-garde comes from the French word which means vanguard, and that refers to any artist, any form of subject, any form of group. So that's what avant-garde means. So avant-garde artists throughout the century, classical art was being challenged more and more as waves of nationalism and imperialism spread over the world in the early half of the 20th century. So as you can see in the slide, there are a lot of art movements. So let's talk about it one by one. First, we have Fauvism and expressionism. Yes, it is read as Fauvism, not Fauvism. So Fauvism comes from the word fauves, meaning wild beast, lost popularity. Fauvism was short-lived name for the longer-lasting art movement called expressionism. In Fauvism, artists sought to explore new emotion in new ways, employing the use of bright and vivid colors and emotional images and subjects. As you can see in the given example, this art is an oil pastel made. This, as you can see, it is very simple. It's like an art by a kindergarten. If you listen to the discussion of Miss Sarah, she talked about that Fauvism is very simple, using simple lines, and the colors are highly saturated. Apart from Fauvism, we have Cubism and Primitivism. So Cubism and Primitivism, it is pioneered by Pablo Picasso. Cubism sought to deepen the consideration that expressionist artists had created by rendering objects and ideas from different angles, seeking to break up and analyze things. Primitivism was similar by extension and was influenced by American colonization and exploration in the early 90s. So here you can see in the example, you have Cubism and Primitivism. You cannot easily identify if what the artwork portray because we can look at it in different angles, seeing, for example, I have seen this as an armored man, while on the other hand, it looks like somewhat base or whatsoever. So in Cubism, it was characterized by its analytic and synthetic qualities. Futurism movement. Futurism or Futurismo was an artistic and social movement that originated in Italy in the early 20th century. So from the word itself, future, it foresees something that is happening in the near future. It emphasized speed, technology, youth, violence, and objects such as cars, airplane, and industrial city. So in this example, I bet the artist would want to show us a lot of things that will happen in the future. And we have the Dada art. Dada, which can be translated as hobby horse and was coined by Hugo Ball. For you to know, Hugo Ball was once said as the founder or the father, somewhat founder, of Dadaism or the Dadaism. So Dada art itself is very hard to define since its members wanted to evade the definition of a unified operation, entirely abandoning established artistic norms. So Dada art is more of a reaction to the social, political, and cultural things that is going on. Dada movement is consisted of artists who rejected the logic, reason, an aestheticism of modern capitalist society, instead expressing nonsense, irrationality, and anti-bourgeois protest in their works. So as you can see in the example, this artwork is entitled as Fountain. Are you familiar with this? This can be seen in the male's comfort room because this is a urinal. And that's Dada art.
So let's now proceed to Surrealism. It was a cultural movement which developed in Europe in the aftermath of World War I and was largely influenced by Dada art. It characterized by strange paintings and dreamlike qualities, an art movement that sought to dig deeper into human consciousness, emotion, preference instead of overturning it. So Surrealism started in 1920s and lasted through the 1930s and was officially began with the Dadaist writer André Breton's. And on the other hand, Surrealism is the positive response to Dada's art negativity, wherein Dada art known as the nonsensical art or the anti-art, wherein it more on reaction to social, cultural, or political things that been arise in a certain society. And the artworks implied no meaning. While on the other hand, Surrealism liberate an artist's imagination by tapping into the unconscious and molded superior reality, or also known as the surreality. And Surrealism aimed to revolutionize human experience, rejecting a rational vision of life in favor of one that asserted the value of the unconscious and dreams. So when we say Surrealism, it's more on reality and dreams. So the example of the Surrealism is the Metamorphosis of Narcissus by Salvador Dali. It was an oil on canvas painting. The meaning of this is Narcissus was a youth of great beauty who loved only himself and broke the hearts of many lovers. The god punished him by letting him see his own reflection in a pool. So this painting is Dali's interpretation of the Greek myth of Narcissus. So the Metamorphosis of Narcissus is one of the best examples of the Surrealism art. The next one is propaganda. It is an art that generally employed to sway the public opinion through the use of powerful images and clever typography. So propaganda is the government communication to the public that are designed to influence opinion. And the information may be true or false, but it is ended up carefully selected for its political effect. And propaganda, often paired with slogans, sayings, or words to add up clarity to a certain images that been raised. And the above example is a worldwide popular poster that been created by J. Howard Miller in 1943. It was created for Westinghouse Electric to boast the morale of women who already work at the company, rather than to recruit women to come to work. And the poster was rediscovered in the early 80s and used to promote feminism and is often mistaken for the Rosie the Riveter. So the next one is the existentialism art. It concerned a specific set of ideas related to human existence, wherein existence is the reality as opposed to appearance. Thought and ideas that were abstract and were generally unique to each individual. It focuses on individual experiences. This art made it a perfect tool with which to interpret much post-war abstract art. So the example of this is the walking man. It shows a fragile subject isolated and exposed to the elements which consequently have begun to ravage his very being. So the walking man is the example of the existentialism art.
Next is neo-expressionism and feminism. Neo-expressionism. Super-realism crumbled beneath the powerful emotions that neo-expressionism and the feminist movement sought to invoke with their works of art. Invoke means to support. Neo-expressionism was a return to the technical artwork of the 1940s and the Futurism movement, but lacked the same angry feel. So, this simply means that the artists of this era wanted to produce a more careful, serious examination of emotion and expression. They wanted the viewer to be curious and think deeply instead of being enraged. Enraged means angry. So, they wanted the viewer to be curious and think deeply instead of being angry. So, performance art. The last decade of the 20th century featured art that was largely labeled as performance art. This art characterized the growing use of personal computers and art, was used liberally in new video games, movies, and other technological advances. So, in this, in the performance art, it uses of technology. No?
So that was the end of the 20th century art movements, where the world ranges from wars to economic downturns and to radical political movements. Those changes got embraced by the all artists all over the world.
So, before we go deeper about art since 1945, let me define you what is art since 1945. A classic introduction to art since the end of the Second World War II movement in art since 1945 tells the story of art across all forms of media over the past 65 years. Revised and redesigned for the first time since 2001, this standard introduction to visual art in the post-war era examines the movements, trends, and artists from abstract expressionism to the present days. So, abstract expressionism. What is abstract expressionism? Abstract expressionism was the first truly American style of painting. So, because of World War II, the global art capital shifted from Paris to New York City. First major avant-garde art style to be developed in the United States. We already know what is avant-garde is because it's already discussed by Genevieve earlier. Then the two processes of abstract expressionism. There are two processes of abstract expressionism, which is gestural abstraction and chromatic abstraction. So, what is gestural abstraction? So, gestural abstraction refers to the way of making art. It is a process, not a movement. So, with an abstract gestural painting, the point is not what gets painted, but the point is how it gets painted. Abstract gestural painters explore their deepest emotions and they express part of themselves during the physical act of painting. While the chromatic abstraction, it is also called field painters or color field painters. They are creating areas of unbroken surface and a flat picture plane. There are two painters in gestural abstraction that are generally considered. They are Pollack and de Kooning, while Newman and Rothko are recognized as chromatic abstraction painters. Existentialism. It is a form of political inquiry that explores the nature of existence by emphasizing experience of the human subject, not merely the thinking subject, but the acting, feeling, living human individuals. Nature of existence means different things to different people who is sharing their experiences as a human, not merely the thinking subject, but also on how they act, what they feel, and being a living human individual. One of the painters of abstract expressionism is Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock, or Paul Jackson Pollock, was an American painter and a major figure in the abstract expressionist movement. He was widely noticed for his technique of pouring or splashing liquid household paint onto a horizontal surface, enabling him to view and paint his canvases from all angles. The painting you've seen in the slide is painted by Jackson Pollock. It is a gestural abstraction, the expressive application of paint, leaving visible and often chaotic brushstrokes or action painting. Created paintings by using a raw, unprimed canvas on the floor. Pollock would splash, fling, drip, pour, paint, and use paintbrushes, sandglass, sticks, and etc. to create art, or step on the canvas, cigarette, etc. It also gives him the feeling of being in the painting in action. Another painter of abstract expressionism is D. Koning, or Willem D. Koning. He was a Dutch-American abstract expressionist artist. He was born on Notre Dame and moved to the United States in 1986, becoming an American citizen in 1962. In 1943, he married painter Elaine Fried. So the picture in the slide is artwork of D. Koning entitled Two Women 1954. So never became completely abstract figures appear in his work, expressed inner thoughts and emotions through visible brush and painter's knife strokes. It is often reworked canvases, wiped off paint to start over, painted over another part, and etc. Sometimes work a canvas through made holes in it. Barnett Newman was an American artist. He is seen as one of the major figures in abstract expressionism and one of the foremost of the color-filled painters. His paintings are essential in the tone and content, explicitly composed with the intention of communicating a sense of locality, presence, and contingency. Newman used color to express complex feelings about humanity and its relationship to the universe. Mark Rothko, born Markus Yakovlevich Rothkowitz, was an American abstract painter of Latvian Jewish descent. He is best known for his color-filled paintings, which depicted irregular and painterly rectangular regions of color, which he produced from 1949 to 1970.
Chromatic abstraction. It emerged in New York at the year of 1940s to 1950s. This artwork is lacked with energetic application of paint but uses blocks and lines of colors to express complex feelings about the universe, also called color-filled painting. One of the examples of this is the number 14, 1961 by Mark Rothko. The expression of feelings through colors. If you observe the colors of the painting, you miss the deep religious experience he had while creating them. Life is a cycle of tragic times, happy times, and expression cycles through colors. Basic human emotions, tragedy, ecstasy, doom. Works evoke the feelings of landscape painting, different layers. Tension between geometric shapes and formless in material versus immaterial worlds, and both weight at the bottom. Next is post-painterly abstraction. This is described by Clement Greenberg, an influential art critic, as the cool rationale. use same technique as the abstract expression artists like Pollock, but didn't put intentional subconscious expression into the paintings, also called hard edge. This describes as the abstract expression without the spiritual element. Some call it the second generation of abstract expression. This is avoid build-up to paint, use pure colors, avoid tackle surface effects, psychological detachment. So, the man who had famous from this post-painterly is Frank Stella. Frank Philip Stella is an American painter, sculptor, and a printmaker, known for his work in the areas of minimalism and post-painterly abstraction. Stella lives and works in the New York City. So this is the work of Stella, the Más o Menos, or in English, more or less, is created on 1964 by oil on canvas. So print stripe painting canvases of solid colors separately by areas, overlay canvas that emphasize the flatness and no sensational space. So what do you see? So often works where deep structure to emphasize the role of the canvas as an art object. Next is David Smith. See, so Roland David Smith was an American abstract expressionist sculptor and painter, best known for creating large steel abstract geometric sculpture. So this is the artwork of David Smith, so titled Cubi 19. So welds pieces of metal together in abstract composition, influenced by Cubist sculpture. Cubist series in the 1960s basic geometric shapes and rectangle, square, circle, and etc. It welded together to make them appear to be precursional balancing. Stainless steel burnish like mark to give texture and a light Pollock. Press for the evocation of human qualities, precariousness of human life, for example. So resemble the two temples. Next is Maya Lin. So Maya Lin received her bachelor degree from Yale, where she studied architecture and sculpture. During his senior year, she won a nationwide competition to create a design for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Her minimalist design approached controversy, but has become very popular with the public over the years. So this is the artwork of Maya Lin. It's a V-shaped monument cut in the earth with 60,000 casualties of the Vietnam War listed in the other. They were killed and reported missing. So this artwork starts off the ground and increased to 10 feet tall, then recedes back into the ground. This is very geometric in appearance. Mia Lin, so she made this at the Lincoln Memorial, the other of the Washington monuments. He used the black granite, reflective. Viewers can see themselves the names, simplicity, characterized. Does this reflect an attitude about the American involvement in war? Memorial cuts into the ground, but grass continues to grow. So it like a scar in earth, war is a scar in the society. Simplicity allows the viewer to ponder the war and soldiers.
So, pop art 1960s. Pop art reaction against abstract expressionism make art something recognizable. It is used imagery from popular culture like ads, comics, products, celebrities, and etc. In 1950s, consumer-based societies and throwaway culture, art becomes a commodity to be sold just like everything else. Production methods reflect that sensibility. rejects many abstract expression ideas like psychological undertones, emotional, heroic art is not an expression of personality, uses found image. It is also use of industrial methods and media. So, one of the artists from pop art is Richard Hamilton. Richard Hamilton was the founder of pop art and a visionary who outlined its aims and ideals. A lollipop from one of his early colleges furnished the movement with its title. So Richard Hamilton was founder means he is the one who established pop art. So we are very thankful to him that he established this kind of art because we use this today. Some of us use this today like in the comics when we sell products and advertisement and etc. So pop art is very useful nowadays. So the picture in the slide is one of the used in exhibition of Richard Hamilton entitled What is Tomorrow? It is about American culture in England. It is the newest technology showcase, shows the traditional American family, ironic, humorous spin on American culture. Images mean something different from their original or intent. Robert Ruskenberg, or also known Milton Ernest Robert Ruskenberg. He was an American painter and graphic artist whose early works anticipated the pop art movement. So, Ruskenberg is well known for his combines a group of artworks which incorporated everyday object as an art materials and which blurred the distinctions between painting and sculpture. So the picture in the slide is one of the Ruskenberg painting entitled Canyon on 1959, or also called combined painting. Gathered scraps of newspaper photos, discarded materials to make assemblages. It collected them in New York City from the street usually. Paintings relate to both art and life, neither can be made. I tried to act in the gap between the two. Next is Roy Lichtenstein. Roy Fox Lichtenstein was an American pop artist during the 1960s, along with Andy Warhol, Jasper Johns, and James Rosinski, among others. He became a leading figure in the new art movement. His work defined the premise of pop art through parody. As you see the picture in the slide, it is one of his painting entitled Hopeless 1963. It is made from oil on canvas. Next is Claes Oldenburg. Claes Oldenburg was born on January 28, 1929. He is a Swedish-born American sculptor, best known for his public art installations, typically featuring large replicas of everyday objects. Another theme on his work is self-sculpture versions of everyday objects. One of his artworks is the Spawn Bridge and Cherry Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1985 to 1988. Also made hard sculpture of food or everyday items. Later, he made large outdoor sculptures, lipsticks, ice cream, cone drop on ground.
Site-specific art. Site-specific art is the artwork created to exist in a certain place. Typically, the artist takes the location into account while planning and creating the artwork. So the famous of the site-specific art is Christoph Vladimirovich Javasev and Jean-Claude Donat de Galibon, known as Christo and Jean-Claude, were artists noted for their large-scale, site-specific environmental installation, often large landmark and landscape elements wrapped in fabric, including the wrap-resist tag, the Pont Neuf raft, running fence in California, and the gates in the New York City Central Park. Christo and Jean-Claude create the surrounded islands in Florida. We use the pink fabric, temporary work of art, started with wrapping like motorcycles, extended into wrapping the environment. Essential to the work is that the art does not damage nature or ecology, must return to the way it was found afterwards. Work not patronized later, the wrapping became curtains in New York City Central Park project. This wrapping was of 11 man-made islands of the coast of Miami and Biscayne Bay. Flamingo pink fabric and appropriate choice. Concerned that fabric might affect manatees, but it didn't. Next is Robert Smithson. Robert Smithson is an American artist known for sculpture and land art, who often used drawing and photography in relation to spatial arts. Robert Smithson earthworks efforts to preserve nature incorporating natural materials. In outdoor location, site-specific works wanted to capture the beauty of earth and outdoor space. Some work done indoor but involve taking materials from outside or inside. Dirt, rocks, and sand are the main material to create if we use in the indoor or in on-site works. Use mirror in indoors works to create infinite feeling. Richard Serra. Richard Serra was an American artist involved in the process art movement. He lives and works in Tribeca, New York, and on the New York Fork, Long Island. So this is the artwork of Richard Serra, titled Arc in 1981 in New York City. In famous work of art, it is made of steel. Wanted a work of art is disrupt use of the site. The power of the piece should disrupt the site, block the views, people unable to cross the plaza, or etc. Art should dictate the way the site used.
Next is Surrealism. Surrealism is a still life paintings or portraits with photographic accuracy, often based on photographs. It is also employed airbrush and grid lines to create realistic image. One of the painters of Surrealism is Audrey Flack. Audrey Flack, born on May 30, 1931. She is an American artist. Her work pioneered the art genre of photorealism. Her work encompasses painting, sculpture, and photography. So, picture in the slide is one of the artwork of Audrey in 1977 made by oil over a click on canvas. Another painters that belongs in Surrealism is Chuck Close or Charles Thomas Close, born on July 5, 1940. He is an American painter, artist, and photographer. He makes massive scale, photorealist portraits. Close often paints abstract portraits of himself and others, which hang in collection internationally. Close also creates photo portraits using a very large format camera. Even though a catastrophic spiral artery collapse in 1988 that bring his left arm severely paralyzed, but he has continued to paint. So, the picture in the slide is one of the close artwork entitled Big Self-Portrait 1967 to 1968, acrylic on canvas, or made of acrylic on canvas. Next is Dwayne Hanson from January 17, 1925 to January 6, 1966. He was an American artist and sculptor born in Minnesota. He spent most of his career in South Florida. He was known for his life-size realistic sculptures of people. He cast the works based on human models in various materials, including polyester resin, fiberglass, bondo, and bronze. So, the picture in the slides is one of the artwork of Hanson called Supermarket Shopper in 1970.
Feminist art is an art that addresses issues of sexual discrimination and subjugation of women. One of the famous of feminist art is Judy Chicago. Is an American feminist artist, art educator, and writer known for her large collaborate art installation pieces about birth and creation images which examine the role of women in history and culture. Changed her last name to Chicago, where she was born, because she believed that women shouldn't live with a name given to by the patriarch or subjugation. So this is the artwork of Judy's Chicago, the dinner party on 1979. So installation, temporary work, art made up of assembled glazes created for particular space, like an art gallery or museum. Judy Chicago used the traditional woman art incorporated or ceramic embroidery, table setting specific to the woman meant to resemble female reproductive organ. Alloys to 39 women that Chicago believes should be recognized, originally supposed to be 13 women, numbered in a witch's coven present at the Last Supper. Indicate numbers so it was tripled. Large equilateral triangle, table 48-foot sizes, triangle mother goddess symbol or sacred feminine. Next is Barbara Kruger. Barbara Kruger is an American conceptual artist and collegist associated with the picture generation. Most of her work consists of black and white photographs overlaid with declarative captions stated in white on red futural bold, oblique, or hevactica ultra condensed text. The praise in her works often include pronouns such as you, your, I, we, they, addressing cultural construction of power, identity, consumerism, and sexuality. So this is the artwork. This is the artwork of Barbara Kruger. First Scent of Modernism. So titled Your Gaze Hits the Sides of My Face on 1981. Modernism is an old, outdated by 80s. Artists could try to revolutionize, but that is traditional at this point in history. The idea of doing something new has become old-fashioned. K is the appropriation of ideas from the past but emptied or germ fast meaning. Reverse modernism exploded, disconstructing implosion, destruction from within using convention of art against itself. Graphic designer, mass media influencer attempts to deconstruct advertisement, words placed in a design elements, large single image with a short catchy phrase like a magazine ad, appropriates the image from elsewhere and add text, using the text to interpolate the viewer or insert audience in the work, uses ambiguous pronoun address, example you, who is you. Than so many can identify with the work, can also be used to indicate the target audience, seems to address a male audience usually. Comment upon male gaze again women. Do not see themselves, they only see themselves through the heterosexual male gaze. Next is Cindy Sherman, an American artist. Work consists primarily of photogenic self-portraits, depicting herself in many different contexts and various imagined characters. Cindy Sherman imitates the way that images of women have stereotypically depicted in the movies. Deconstruct the image on 1950s poster outside the theater with black and white photographs from the film, entices the viewer to see the movie, not always from the film itself work, with the idea of stereotypes can define and protagonist antagonist of the films. So, Cindy Sherman put herself in photograph, dress, costume, character portraits. The photos imply that there is narrative but none exists. She always looks away from the camera, implies that someone else is the scene. Explore cliches of 50s woman, businesswoman, unmarried or widow. Criticize the concept of woman object to gaze at. Also did a rape series, or show herself as a victim. Historical portrait series drift up like Marie Antoinette and others, and pornography series use prosthetic limbs begs at question if there is no real body, it is porn.
So, that was the end of art since 1945, though many artists and painters of the art since 1945, but we get only few of them. Art since 1945 tells the story of art across all forms of media over the past 75 years.
And that's end our reporting, which is all about the 20th century and the art since 1945. If you have questions or clarifications, you can directly message us, the reporters, so that we can address your concern and you will be enlightened. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have learned something. Thank you.